From the ashes of defeat, humans would rise again and again, and this time, they warned, things would be different. Things would be worse for those who provoked them. This is the first part of a two-part episode. Part 2 will be released next week exclusively on another platform, so make sure to stay tuned and get notified when it drops. Once upon a time, long before humanity set foot among the stars, there was a race called the Signari. They lived in a cluster of star systems at the edge of the galaxy, so far away that no one ever bothered to visit or trade with them. For the Signari were not known for their friendliness. In fact, they were quite the opposite. Over millions of years, they had built a reputation for being aggressive and territorial. If any ship approached their borders without declaring its intentions, the Signari would open fire immediately. It didn't matter whether it was a merchant vessel, a fleeing refugee, or an exploration ship. If you approached the Signari without making contact, you would leave that system in pieces. Their hatred for outsiders knew no bounds and was only rivaled by their utter disdain for change. They stuck to their old ways and despised anyone who dared challenge their customs. So imagine the shock when one day a lone human ship emerged from hyperspace within their territory. At the time, human space was barely a speck compared to the rest of the galaxy. And yet somehow this human ship had traversed the vast expanse of space to appear right outside the Signian's front door. "Greetings," they said over the comm channel. "We come in peace." The response was immediate and ruthless. "You have trespassed into the domain of the Signari. Prepare to be destroyed." Without hesitation, the Signari opened fire, turning their new guests into a pile of scrap metal, or so they thought. For humans, after centuries of struggle and strife on their own cradle, had learned to rebuild, to adapt, and to survive. The Galactic Council was the supreme governing body of the Milky Way. It consisted of representatives from hundreds of races and species, all deemed worthy based on their age, intelligence, and contributions to galactic society. Every few decades, the Council convened on the planet Axana to discuss matters concerning the entire galaxy. This time it was about humans. As far as galactic society was concerned, humanity was a fledgling civilization that posed little to no threat. In fact, many members saw humans as nothing more than a minor annoyance, like a buzzing fly that landed on your window. You could ignore it, but it still managed to annoy you. However, recently, human activity had become increasingly troublesome. They had started exploring new star systems and claiming them as their own. They attacked anyone who dared set foot on their soil and slaughtered countless alien creatures just because they were different. Most importantly, they refused to join the Galactic Council. To some species, this was nothing more than youthful arrogance, but to others, it was a growing concern. Among them was the Signari, whose representative sat patiently waiting for his turn to speak. When the debate began, the council was divided. Many argued that humanity should be ignored and left alone, while others argued that they had to be taught their place in the universe. The Signarian waited, his face impassive. Finally, when he was given the floor, he stood up and addressed the assembled species. His voice echoed throughout the great hall, booming with the power of ages. "We cannot allow this to continue. Humans must be taught a lesson they will never forget." The room buzzed with agreement. Finally, someone understood their frustration. The cynics spoke. Of course, there were some who disagreed, but their voices were drowned out by the chorus of yes. Soon enough, a fleet was assembled to teach humans a harsh lesson. They arrived in force, confident that they would crush the newcomers, but what they did not expect was what happened next. For when the fleets of the Galactic Concord met the human fleet, they were utterly decimated. Human technology, though primitive by galactic standards, was still leaps and bounds ahead of what these old empires possessed. Ships that once dominated the stars were now being blown out of the sky like drones. Weapons that once terrified entire worlds were now useless trinkets. And strategies that once brought victory were now child's play. The Signarians watched in disbelief as their companions fell one by one until only they were left. Now, facing a human fleet that showed no signs of stopping, the Signari surrendered. They had come to teach humans a lesson, but instead, they had become the lesson themselves. Humility is a bitter pill to swallow, especially for an ancient and proud race like the Signari. It took them decades to accept the defeat, but accept it they did, bowing before the might of humanity. However, that did not mean they forgot, and they waited for the chance to take their revenge. Humans were young, reckless, and fragile. Compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy, they were ants who had climbed a mountain. No matter how strong they were, they would eventually be pushed back down. That day would come when the human empire was at its peak, when their arrogance knew no bounds. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was a place of silence and power. It was said that the voices inside could shape the fate of entire worlds. There, in that silent chamber, the fate of the galaxy would be decided. The delegates from hundreds of species, each believing they were wise, advanced, and superior in their own way, had gathered. But that day the chamber was restless, for standing in the center on the speaking platform was a human delegate, and his words carried a weight that made even the air seem heavy. The human did not shout. He did not beg. His voice was calm, but each sentence struck like a warning bell. "We do not want war," he said slowly. But if you push us, if you provoke us, if you try to take from us, you will regret it. Humanity will not kneel. Humanity will not break." The other species exchanged glances. Some chuckled, others rolled their eyes, a few looked uneasy, remembering past encounters with humans, encounters that had not gone as planned. But most in that chamber believed the same thing. Humans were young, reckless, and fragile compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy. What could Earth possibly do against empires that had existed for thousands of years? The council speaker, an ancient being with skin like stone, leaned forward. "Human delegate," it said, "are you threatening the galaxy?" The man shook his head. His expression remained calm. "No, we are warning you, do not provoke us, leave us in peace." The words echoed through the chamber, and then came the why laughter. Deep mocking laughter from the delegates of the powerful empires. They whispered among themselves, calling humans dramatic, calling them foolish, calling them children who did not know their place. But not everyone laughed. In the corner of the chamber, a few silent figures watched carefully. These were species who had seen humans up close, who had fought against them in border skirmishes, who had studied Earth's history. They knew what the others did not. They knew humans had a pattern. Once, an entire fleet had attacked a single human colony, burning it to the ground and killing every man, woman, and child. Then, when they went to claim the planet for themselves, they found it abandoned. The humans had rebuilt their fleet and vanished into the stars. Another time, a mining company had attempted to siphon off a planet's resources without caring about the damage they were doing to the environment. The planet's native species, desperate to stop them, had called upon the humans for help. Together, they had driven out the greedy miners, but not before teaching them a lesson they would never forget. Each story was a reminder of the potential that lay dormant within humanity, waiting to be unleashed. Those stories were hushed whispers compared to the roar of the crowd, but they were enough to send shivers down the spines of those who listened. For deep down, the species of the Galactic Council knew humans could destroy them even if they didn't know it themselves. As the human delegate finished his speech and left the chamber, the whispers followed him. The truth was, they all knew humanity wasn't ready to join the Galactic Council, not yet anyway, but that didn't mean they should be left alone. The human delegate disappeared into the crowd. He had done his job. Now it was time to watch. A smile played on his lips. This was only the beginning. This is the first part of a two-part episode. Part 2 will be released next week exclusively on another platform, so make sure to stay tuned and get notified when it drops. Humans endured. Humans adapted, and when pushed too far, humans struck back with a fury that left scars for generations. Still, the warnings were dismissed. Reports from the human colonies about alien raids were ignored. Complaints about stolen trade routes were buried under politics, and when a small group of empires formed a coalition to discipline Earth, the Council allowed it. After all, the galaxy thought humans needed to be shown their place. The human delegate gave one last speech before leaving the chamber. His eyes scanned the room, meeting the gaze of every species present, and with a calm, steady voice, he said, "You think we are weak, you think we are small, but remember this, humans do not forget. Humans do not forgive. And when the day comes, when you finally understand what we are, it will be too late." Silence fell. No laughter followed this time. Some felt a chill run through them, though they could not explain why. Others waved it away, pretending the words meant nothing. But the seed of unease had been planted. After the human left, the council broke into arguments. Some shouted that Earth was a threat that must be contained. Others said humans were nothing to fear, a minor species with loud words but little strength. The debate went on for hours, but in the end, the decision was made. The warnings would be ignored. Far across the stars, fleets were already moving. Alien warships gathered at the edges of human space, their commanders confident the campaign would be easy. They spoke of conquest, of resources, of glory. They believed Earth would kneel in weeks, and they believed the Council would thank them for silencing the noisy humans. But deep inside the minds of a few, doubts remained. In the chaos of war, there is opportunity. Humans have always seized the moment. In the darkest times, there has always been hope. Hope for survival, hope for victory, and hope for revenge. And in the depths of despair, hope has become a weapon. The ships came from the Klaken Empire, its warriors clad in armor, their faces hidden behind horned helmets. Many lives had been lost during the raid. The Klaken had attacked a mining colony. Now its people were dead or dying. Entire families wiped out, entire settlements burned. But the attackers had found nothing of value, only corpses and ruins. Their quarry, a crashed ship, had been guarded by more than just colonists. There were soldiers stationed there, a defense force led by the best tacticians and fighters humanity had to offer. It wasn't supposed to be a battle. The soldiers were never supposed to fire their weapons. But the Klaxon had chosen violence, and in response, the humans unleashed hell. One soldier later recalled, "I looked around me and realized we had walked into a trap. As we moved to take up positions, the crowds closed in, their eyes gleaming with savage excitement. They seemed almost drunk with the lust for battle. We stood our ground and waited, and then the shooting started. I don't remember how long it lasted. Hours, days, maybe minutes, I don't know. All I can tell you is that when it stopped, the only thing that moved out there was the wind and the grass, and even the wind seemed afraid. News of the battle spread like wildfire. Every human being who heard the story gasped in awe. What happened to the Kraken? Where did their fleet go? Why didn't they press their attack? No one knew the answers to those questions, but no one cared. Not after the horrors that had been inflicted on the colonists. Not after so much blood had been spilled. The call for revenge echoed throughout the human system. There would be no peace, no negotiations, no surrender. The Kraut Empire would burn. General Toland stood in his flagship staring at the readings on his console. He could not believe what he was seeing. The claw cannon fleet was gone. The jump points were clear, the hyperspace lanes empty. It was as if the enemy had vanished into thin air. For a moment he felt a surge of relief. Then anger took over. The cowards had fled, but where would they hide? And when would they strike again? And why had they abandoned their conquests? These questions tormented him for weeks. Sleep became a luxury he could not afford. Food turned to ashes in his mouth. He spent every waking moment studying the reports, poring over the battle data. He interviewed survivors, examined the weapons, scoured the wreckage, but it was useless. The mystery only deepened. Then one day something caught his eye. While reviewing the damage reports, he noticed an anomaly. One of the ships had been hit by a weapon of unknown origin. Its hull was riddled with holes, its systems destroyed. And then he remembered a detail from one of the survivor interviews. Someone had talked about strange lights in the sky, bright streaks that crisscrossed the battlefield, disappearing into the darkness. At first, Toland dismissed it as a hallucination caused by the stress of battle, but now he wasn't so sure. The claw cannon were known for their heavy armor and powerful weapons, but their ships had no defense against this new threat, so the general ordered an investigation. He assembled a team of experts and pored over the evidence. Finally, they found the answer. The claw cannon fleet had not been destroyed. It had been boarded. Ships had been penetrated, crews slaughtered, technology stolen. The only survivors were the ones who had managed to send out a distress signal before their ship was captured. But who had done this? The answer surprised them. It was the humans. With the help of aliens, the humans had learned to fight in space. But this was no ordinary alien technology. The weapons were too advanced, the tactics too sophisticated. This was the work of the Krell. The Krell had been humanity's greatest enemy, a race of reptilian humanoids with cruel eyes and a lust for power. For centuries, they had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist, subjugating entire planets, draining their resources and enslaving their populations. Humanity had resisted, but it wasn't enough. Earth had been occupied. The Krell had stripped it of its resources, poisoned its atmosphere, enslaved its people. But then something happened. The Krell discovered an ancient weapon, a relic of a bygone era, capable of unimaginable destruction. It was the key to ending the war, a single device that could turn the tide and bring humanity to its knees. But the humans fought back, and the Krell commander activated the weapon. He aimed it at the planet and pressed the button. But just before it could fire, the humans hacked into the system and redirected the beam. It struck the Krell flagship and ripped it apart. The explosion was seen across the galaxy. It was a symbol of hope, a beacon of rebellion, and it marked the beginning of the end for the Krell Empire. The humans chased them down and destroyed their fleets, ship by ship, planet by planet. The Krell were driven out of the Milky Way. They fled to the Andromeda Galaxy, defeated and humiliated. Or so everyone believed. The truth was, the Krell had survived. Their ships may have been destroyed, but their crews had escaped. They fled to distant corners of the universe, hiding among the stars, plotting their revenge. And now they were back. It was General Talon who figured it out first. He put the pieces together and realized what was happening. The Krell had infiltrated the Claw Cannon Empire, used their ships to attack the humans and steal their technology. But why? What did they gain by helping the humans? The answer shocked him. The Krell wanted another war, a war against the galaxy itself. The Kraken had been just the beginning. If the humans could conquer them, they could conquer anyone. And when the time comes, the galaxy will know that those humans are not so easily intimidated or broken. The first attack after the declaration of war, the first taste of the coming storm. What do you think? Humans have been pushed to the edge before, but that only makes them stronger. It's a beautiful thing to see. I am pleased you cannot hide the truth forever. Soon all the galaxy will know what we have known for a long time. Humans are cunning. They are relentless, and most importantly, they are survivors. They will endure and adapt to any situation. I cannot wait to see it unfold. Will you watch? Would you care to share your thoughts on the impending doom of the galaxy? Leave a comment below. The galaxy is vast, filled with wonder and mystery, yet it is also filled with conflict. For centuries, the empires have watched humanity grow, fascinated by our potential and frustrated by our limitations. Now that potential is about to be unleashed. We are about to witness a spectacle of unparalleled proportions, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. Join me in celebrating this momentous occasion. Let us revel in the inevitable triumph of mankind, knowing that the galaxy shall tremble before them. A lone council member sat in his seat, deep in thought. His mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of a forgotten past. One old council member remembered something strange he had once read in Earth's history. He remembered tales of ancient wars when humans had faced impossible odds and still survived. He remembered reading of cities burned to ashes yet rebuilt stronger. He remembered that humans had a strange way of turning weakness into strength. He tried to speak, tried to remind the chamber of those lessons, but his words were drowned in noise. The empires were too eager, too certain, too arrogant. They believed they knew the truth of humanity, but they were wrong. In that moment, the fate of the galaxy shifted. By ignoring the warnings, by dismissing the words of one calm human, they had set events in motion that could not be undone. The council chamber returned to silence, unaware that history would remember this day as the day the galaxy sealed its own doom. Somewhere far away on Earth, humans prepared quietly. They did not shout, they did not make threats, they simply waited. And when the time came, the galaxy would understand the meaning of those words. Do not provoke us. Decades of planning, centuries of preparation, millennia of anticipation. It all culminated in this moment. The empires had made their move, and humanity was ready to respond. A vast network of alliances spanning across the galaxy, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by the wisdom of countless generations. Humanity's response to the declaration of war was swift and decisive. Fleets jumped into action, hurtling through the vast expanse of space towards the unsuspecting alien worlds. These were no ordinary ships. They were marvels of human engineering, sleek and deadly, equipped with the latest in weaponry and technology. At the heart of each ship was a crew of highly trained soldiers, their courage bolstered by years of rigorous training and their loyalty to the human cause unwavering. The soldiers knew their mission was not just to fight, but to liberate, to free the galaxy from the shackles of tyranny and oppression. Meanwhile, on the homeworlds of the empires, chaos reigned. Citizens awoke to the news of the impending invasion, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. Leaders panicked, desperate to assemble a defense force capable of repelling the human onslaught. But it was too late. The humans were upon them before they even had a chance to react. Battles raged across the galaxy, each one a testament to the tenacity and fighting prowess of humanity. Ships were lost and found, planets were besieged and liberated. Through it all, the human spirit remained unbroken. Their determination to win, to survive, to thrive burning brighter than ever before. As the war dragged on, the galaxy began to take notice. Whispers of humanity's might spread like wildfire, tales of bravery and sacrifice, of innovation and ingenuity. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were a force to be reckoned with, a beacon of hope in a sea of darkness. The tide of war had turned and there was no turning back. The galaxy would never be the same again. On the colony world of Holstrom, the first attack fell. Alien warships broke through the skies, their weapons raining fire upon cities and farms. The people of Holstrom fought back with everything they had. Small defense fleets, ground troops, and civilian volunteers. Among them was Sarah Connor, a young mother who had never held a weapon in her life until today. As the alien invaders closed in on her city, she found herself transformed into a fierce warrior, her determination fueled by the primal instinct to protect her child at any cost. Alongside her were grizzled veterans who had seen countless battles, their faces lined with the scars of war, their eyes hardened by the horrors they had witnessed. Together they formed an unlikely alliance, bound by a common purpose, to defend their world from the alien threat. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline as she took aim at the advancing enemy. Beside her, the veteran let loose a barrage of fire, his movements precise and economical. The air crackled with energy as lasers and missiles streaked through the sky, a deadly ballet of offense and defense. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, her hands steady as she fired. She was just one small part of a much larger plan, a single thread in the tapestry of humanity's defense. But in that moment, she felt like the entire fate of the world rested on her shoulders. Around her, the battle raged, a cacophony of explosions and gunfire, screams and shouts. Yet amidst the chaos, there was a strange sense of camaraderie. Sarah found herself working in unison with the veteran, their movements synchronized, their eyes locked onto the enemy. Together, they repelled wave after wave of attackers, their courage and determination inspiring those around them. But Sarah knew that this was just the beginning. The real test was yet to come. The enemy was relentless, their advanced technology and sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm them. Still, she stood firm, her resolve hardening with each passing moment. As long as humanity had breath in its lungs, it would not surrender. Sarah thought of the countless stories of courage and sacrifice that had become part of her world's lore. Tales of ordinary people who had risen to extraordinary heights in the face of adversity. And in that moment, she knew that she was part of something much bigger than herself, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the battlefield, the defenders of Holstrom made a stand. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not out of spirit. Sarah Connor, the young mother-turned-warrior, stood shoulder to shoulder with the grizzled veterans, their faces grim, their eyes blazing with defiance. The alien invaders surged forward, their numbers seemingly endless, their weapons primed and ready to fire. This was it, the moment of truth. Sarah felt the weight of the coming battle pressing down on her, the hopes and dreams of her people resting on their shoulders. But she would not falter. With a deep breath, she steadied herself, her fingers tightening around the controls of her weapon. Beside her, the veteran let loose a volley of fire, his movements precise and deadly. Sarah joined him, her shots echoing across the battlefield, each one a defiant roar against the encroaching darkness. Lasers and missiles streaked through the twilight sky, a deadly dance of light and destruction. Explosions rocked the ground, sending tremors through the very core of the planet. The alien invaders fell, but more seemed to rise in their place, their ranks seemingly inexhaustible. Yet the defenders stood firm, their courage and determination shining brightly in the face of overwhelming odds. For Sarah, this was more than just a battle. It was a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity, a testament to the unbreakable bonds of family, love, and hope. Even in the darkest hour, the human spirit refused to be extinguished. With each passing moment, Sarah felt a sense of unity with her fellow defenders, a shared purpose that transcended their differences, their backgrounds, and their fears. They were united in their love for their world, their families, and their future, and as long as they stood together, they knew they could face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and prevail against any enemy. With the first strike against humanity, the galaxy would know that it was merely a prologue, a mere prelude to the main event. The empires, in their arrogance, had chosen to ignite the sleeping giant. They had awakened a force that would shake the very foundations of the cosmos. They had dared to underestimate the resilience, the adaptability, and the sheer tenacity of the human spirit. Now they would pay the price. The galaxy was about to witness the true power of humanity, a power that had lain dormant for eons, waiting for the moment to unleash its full force. Get ready, galaxy. You have awakened a force you cannot hope to comprehend. History will remember this day as the day humanity ceased to be the underdog. It was the day the galaxy made a grave mistake. Don't miss out. Stay tuned because the best is yet to come. The true story of humanity has just begun. The enemy was vast and terrible and utterly alone. And so it was all the more surprising when one day the scout ship returned with news that the Armada had vanished. Gone were the hundreds of worlds and trillions of troops. As far as anyone could tell, they had simply disappeared. For weeks, the galaxy buzzed with rumors about what might have happened. Did the Great Armada turn tail and flee? Had the coalition turned against its leader? Was this the end of the war? Then came the answer. But it wasn't what anyone expected. It started on the edges of the Empire where the coalition forces had marched first. Small groups of humans were found, hidden in bunkers deep under the ground or concealed in ships buried in asteroid fields. They had been there all along, waiting in the dark, watching the endless parade of strangers, and they told a grim tale. They spoke of an invasion force unlike any other, creatures of pure energy who poured out of cracks in space-time itself. They showed the scars of weapons that burned with the power of dying stars. And they told of how the combined armies of the Empire met these horrors and were consumed by them. Against the alien armada, their resistance was crushed within days. The survivors were chained and paraded as proof of the coalition's strength. The coalition leaders sent a message to the Galactic Council. The human frontier is ours. They are too weak to resist. The chamber filled with applause. Some delegates laughed and congratulated the invaders, saying the humans would now understand their place. The Council's earlier warnings seemed ridiculous in that moment. Nothing more than empty words from a desperate species. But not everyone joined the celebration. A few delegates sat silent, their eyes heavy with worry. They had seen something troubling in the reports. Despite overwhelming force, the humans of Holstrom had fought fiercely. Even when defeat was certain, they had refused to surrender. They fought until their weapons broke, until their defenses fell, until they were dragged away in chains. That kind of defiance was not normal. It was dangerous. Still, the coalition pushed further. More colonies were attacked, more settlements destroyed. Each time humans fought back with everything they had. Farmers picked up rifles, children carried messages through burning streets, pilots rammed their damaged ships into enemy cruisers, taking enemies down with them. The aliens called it foolishness. They laughed at the waste of life. But slowly, quietly, fear began to spread among the lower soldiers. They whispered that humans were not like others. The reports grew wilder. Whole squads of elite soldiers vanished after scouting missions behind enemy lines. Others claimed to hear the echoes of screams in the dead of night, screams that chilled the soul and raised goosebumps on their arms. Stories circulated about strange lights in the sky, blazing trails across the darkness, sometimes appearing over military installations, sometimes over the homes of officers. People spoke of terrifying apparitions at the edge of their vision, just beyond the reach of their weapons. And everywhere, the missing people, whole squads who disappeared without a trace, leaving behind their weapons, their armor, their very life essence. In the council chamber, the human delegate returned only once. He was different now, colder somehow. His people's plight had stripped away the last vestiges of civility. The other delegate stared at him, not with mockery this time, but with fear. He didn't offer greetings or explanations. Instead, he laid a single data slate on the table between them. A grim specter, a final message from Holostrom. You let this happen. You ignored the warning. You think we are weak, but you will see the truth soon. Then he turned and strode from the chamber, leaving the stunned delegates in silence. A few moments stretched into an age. Finally, the Krill delegate recovered first. He reached out to take the slate, but another voice cut him off. Do not touch that. It was the reptilian Zalkin, his scales shimmering with alarm. That device is a plague. Its very presence corrupts our minds. Nonsense, sneered the Krill, and he touched the slate. Images flooded his mind, searing visions of impossible horror. He recoiled, screaming as if in torment, but it was too late. Tendrils of darkness clung to him, coiling around his thoughts. I am the 13th Herald, hissed the Krill, his eyes wide and mad, and I bring the doom of your race. The other delegates screamed in terror. Their words were drowned out by the sounds of ripping flesh and shattered bones. The heralds invaded their minds, tearing their thoughts apart. The sleek chamber dissolved into chaos as one alien race after another succumbed to the plague. Only two remained. The human delegate sat serenely, calmly watching the apocalypse unfold, and the Zalcon trembled, hiding in fear. The first to fall was the Krill, torn apart by his own people. The heralds ripped free of their bonds and slaughtered every Krill they could find. The Zalcon watched, horrified, as the Krill Queen stumbled into his chamber, her mind shattered. She looked at him, pleading for help, and then she died. Screaming, the Zalcon fled, hiding in the farthest corners of the galaxy. There was nowhere left for him to run. The human delegate followed relentlessly, his footsteps echoing across the void. All the while, the galaxy reeled from the invasion. Worlds were plunged into darkness. Armies withered from within. Systems fell silent as the heralds hunted down their prey. And still the Zucking ran, always running, never stopping. And finally, the hunter cornered his prey on a barren rock in the dead center of a maelstrom. The Zalcon collapsed, whimpering for mercy. But the human delegate offered none. This ends today, he said softly, and with that, he struck. Weapons flared and the Zalcon died. Slowly, the galaxy began to stir. One world at a time. The darkness lifted, revealing scenes of unimaginable devastation. Alien cities lay in ruins. Corpses littered the ground. Entire populations wiped out. But there were signs of life amidst the wreckage. Small bands of survivors struggling to rebuild. They were few, but they were enough. Among them, the seeds of vengeance smoldered. They vowed to hunt down the humans, to tear their colonies to the ground, to wipe the species from the face of the galaxy. But they had no idea what they were up against. The humans did not stand divided. They had suffered terribly, yes, but they had learned a terrible truth. In the face of extinction, all differences paled to insignificance. On Holostrom, the last human colony in the West, the Council had voted to abandon the system, to sacrifice everything in order to send out a distress call. But before the evacuation ships could depart, the portal tore open and the heralds descended upon them. When the dust settled, only a handful remained, wounded and broken. But together they rebuilt, sharing their meager resources and tending to each other's wounds. The strongest among them led patrols into the ruined countryside, hunting down anything that moved, salvaging whatever they could. From the wrecks of the invaders, they gathered weapons, food, tools, anything that could help them survive. And all the while, they waited for the day when the portal would close, when the 13th Herald would return. They trained, planning for the moment when they would be strong enough to fight back. Then one day, he came back, older and harder than before, bearing news that changed everything. The scouts had found other humans, a flotilla of refugees fleeing from the east. With them, a grim tale of loss and destruction, of planets devoured and people turned into wraiths, but also talk of a new weapon, a weapon capable of closing the portal forever. And so the Council made a decision. They would abandon their homes, leave behind the ghosts of the past and join the struggle in the east. Meanwhile, in the sector beyond, the human resistance was growing. World by world, system by system, they pushed back the darkness, hunted down the heralds and wrested control of the portal from the invaders. And with each victory, more and more people returned, drawn home by hope. But there was work yet to be done. The portal remained open, a gaping wound in the fabric of reality. And though the worst of the invasion was over, the enemy was still out there, so the humans prepared to strike back. And that is the end of part 4. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe for more science fiction adventures. See you next time. The Empire's expected panic, yet what they saw was only quiet preparation. Human fleets stopped moving. Borders sealed, colonies pulled back behind defenses, and still no one understood what it meant. The coalition interpreted the silence as fear. They told themselves Earth was breaking, that humanity was too shocked to fight back. They mistook patience for weakness, and in their arrogance they marched deeper, hungry for more. But on the world of Lorien, something unusual happened. As the alien fleet approached, Human settlers evacuated in perfect order. They left behind traps, mines hidden in space, ambush ships cloaked in darkness. The invaders laughed at the resistance, but many of their ships never returned. Rumors spread quickly. The humans are planning something. The commanders dismissed the rumors. They said it was impossible. A young species like humanity could never match the ancient powers of the galaxy. Their victories at Holstrom and others blinded them to the truth. They believed strength was measured only in numbers, in ships, in weapons. They did not see that humanity's greatest weapon was something else entirely: patience, memory, and the will to survive. The human home world had been destroyed, shattered into a million pieces by weapons that tore apart galaxies. The survivors scattered among the stars, driven by hope or perhaps only curiosity, searching for a new home. Most had no idea that they were being hunted, that the coalition sought to wipe out the remnants of humanity. Others did know, and they fled anyway. They ran from ghost fleets through wormholes across the galaxy, away from everything familiar. They pushed on until there was nothing left to explore, nowhere else to go. Then they turned back toward the safety of known space, toward the coalition, toward the only home they'd ever known. Humanity emerged from the shadows, ready to claim its birthright. The coalition forces did not expect this. They thought Earth had been fully destroyed. They did not realize how many humans had survived. Most important, they did not know that humanity was prepared to fight. The human colonies had known the attack was coming. It was just a matter of time before the coalition forces arrived. So they'd used the intervening years to prepare. Every ship, every weapon, every person was ready when the invasion force arrived. Yet even with all their advantages, the humans lost battles. Entire fleets vanished, shredded by ghost ships, torn apart by warriors who wielded weapons as old as the universe itself. For a moment it seemed the coalition would sweep aside the last pockets of resistance. But then Lorium happened. The planet was a backwater. No one expected the human colonies there to put up any kind of fight. They didn't. The humans simply disappeared. They had known the invasion was coming. They had prepared in advance. When the coalition ships arrived, most of the human fleet had already gone. Those that remained fell back behind the planet's moons, hiding among the rocks and ice. And when the coalition landed troops, expecting easy pickings, they found only empty cities, abandoned equipment, and deadly traps. Many ships were lost. The coalition quickly realized that if they wanted more than just this barren rock, they would have to take it slowly. And so they did, spreading out their forces, hunting down the human ships one by one. But this proved difficult because although the humans were weaker, they were also more numerous and far more aggressive than the coalition had anticipated. In fact, the humans did not try to hide from the coalition. They attacked, launching daring raids against planetary installations, chasing enemy transports and crippling entire supply lines. The coalition forces struggled to keep pace, much less win the war. And the losses were not only material, not only ships and men. It was worse. For the first time in centuries, the coalition forces began suffering defeats. And the rumors started. The humans are planning something. Are they biding their time? Are they preparing some kind of trap? There were even reports of massive fortifications on the planet Zar, of entire mountain ranges being hollowed out, of new alliances forming. Of course, these rumors were untrue, or at least that's what the coalition commanders told themselves. They refused to believe that a species so young could defeat them, could plan ahead. You think an alliance can stop me? Only in your dreams. Now it is your turn to wake up from your dreams. Dreams of peace, dreams of unity, dreams of prosperity, dreams of a new Earth. You think I wouldn't understand? You think I don't know what you're thinking? You want to live in peace, but peace is only for the strong. You want unity, but true unity can only exist under my banner. You want prosperity, but only I can bring you prosperity. You want a new Earth, but the old Earth was real. It existed. You can touch it. You can feel it. If you close your eyes, you can hear the birds singing, smell the flowers blooming, taste the rain falling from the sky. Yes, I know you dream of this, but these dreams will never come true. Not for you, not for anyone, because now it is our turn. Our turn to wake up. Our turn to take what is ours. I am the Emperor of the galaxy. I am the one who brings you salvation. I am the one who will crush your enemies for you. I am the one who will build you a new Earth. Follow me and I will lead you to victory. Victory against the humans, victory over the galaxy. We are the wave of the future. Join me and let us crush them together. The humans weren't planning anything. There was nothing to plan. The colonies simply knew the attack was coming. They'd known for decades, maybe centuries. Some had forgotten, but now those memories were coming back. Some were just waking up. The humans had no great general, no grand strategy, no overall plan. They were fighting for survival. Each colony defended itself as best it could. Each fleet tried to hold its position. Each soldier fired as many shots as he could. And in the end, that was enough. The coalition had expected a long war. They thought it would take years to break the human resistance, to force the last human worlds to surrender. They wanted to occupy key positions, to cut off resources, to starve the enemy into submission. Instead, they found the humans waiting for them. At every step, The coalition expected to find huge armies, powerful fleets, desperate defenses, but instead they found empty planets, empty space, and that drove them crazy. They attacked everything, trying to break the resistance, trying to force someone, anyone, to come out and fight, and every time they got only silence in return. And then finally Lorium happened. The coalition learned the hard way that the humans were not going to give up without a fight. The defenders had struck back, delivering heavy losses, and the coalition forces knew they'd been lucky to get away alive. Right now, they had two options. They could run, flee deep into the unknown, or they could fight, face the human fleet in open battle. Neither option was a good one, but the coalition was proud. They were stubborn. They would not admit that a few human colonies could beat them, so they chose to fight. And that was humanity's last battle, because now the humans came after them, hounding them across the galaxy, destroying their fleets, ending their reign. It was the battle that broke the coalition, forced them to scatter, to abandon their conquests, and flee into the depths of space. Humans do not forgive and humans do not forget, which means the invaders should not have been surprised when, after centuries of wandering, the coalition found itself under attack again. It was as if nothing had changed, the same weapons, the same tactics, the same ghost ships, but it was different. This time the humans fought as one, united and unstoppable. There was no escape. The coalition lost one world after another. Its forces crumbled. Its soldiers fell. Its ships were destroyed. All that remained was the flagship and a handful of surviving vessels. The surviving coalition leaders gathered in the flagship, plotting their final stand. They knew there was no chance of winning. They had seen the enemy advance across the galaxy. Whole worlds surrendered rather than face the human onslaught. So now they planned to die with honor, taking as many humans with them as possible. The flagship jumped into hyperspace, pursued by a single human ship. The hunter had become the prey. The predator became the pursued. And inside the flagship, the surviving coalition commanders celebrated. Finally, they would show the humans what it meant to defy the galaxy's true power. But then the alarms sounded. The human ship was closing in. The bridge crew reported, "We're under attack." The flagship's shields collapsed. The enemy boarding party was on its way. The coalition commander met the invaders with a sword. He cut down the first two Marines, but more kept coming. There were too many. One of them managed to shoot him. The commander staggered back, clutching his chest as he watched the last of his fleet destroyed. It was over. The galaxy had changed hands. Humanity had won. Or maybe it had always been this way. Maybe humanity had never left. Maybe it had never fallen. Maybe it was here all along. They saw themselves as heroes, conquerors who would be remembered for breaking humanity. When the Galactic Council met, they bragged about their victories, about how Earth itself would soon kneel before them. But the Galactic Council sat uneasily. Some remembered the words of the human delegate. Some remembered the long silence, and a few whispered what no one dared say aloud. What if humanity is waiting? On Earth, a single message echoed through the years. Do not provoke the bear. As children, they heard stories about the past, about the war with the machines and how humanity almost lost everything. So they understood the importance of patience. Even more, they knew they had to protect their future. In the shadows, Earth's preparations grew. Fleets were being built in secret shipyards. Weapons never before seen were being tested. Humanity did not announce its strength. It did not show its hand. It simply waited. And in that waiting, a storm began to gather. Silent, invisible, unstoppable. The coalition believed they were breaking humanity. But in truth, they were only feeding the fire. The spark of arrogance had been lit. Soon, the galaxy would learn how dangerous it was to underestimate the humans. The Tyrant Empire struck first. Their warships appeared out of the folds of space, smashing into the mining colony on Luna. Before anyone could react, ground forces landed, blasting their way through the remaining defenses. Then they took the city, executing anyone who resisted. It was a show of force, a warning to the rest of the system. The humans had folded before the mighty tyrant. Maybe Earth would surrender now. Maybe the Sol system would join the Empire, becoming another trophy on their galactic mantle. But as Terran soldiers roamed the surface, taking what they wanted, the real victims of the attack watched from the shadows. Aboard hidden ships, a small fleet prepared for action. Aboard the warship Fury, Captain Eva Bell watched the planet through a viewscreen. Her face was grim. She had seen enough battles to know this was no victory. "All we have done is awaken the sleeping giant," she muttered. Back at headquarters, General Petrov watched the Tyrant fleet leave the solar system. He sighed. "Arrogant fools," he said, but there was a hint of admiration in his voice. "Now we can begin." By the time the coalition forces reached the outer systems, rumors of the human fleet had already spread throughout the galaxy. Many dismissed them as propaganda, but others were intrigued. If the humans had a fleet, where were they? Why hadn't they attacked yet? The most popular theory was that the human fleet was hiding near Earth, waiting for rescue, and the coalition decided to test that theory. A joint task force was assembled, a show of force from the strongest members of the coalition. 8 warships, each armed with a squadron of fighters, disappeared into the folds of space, leaving the galaxy to wonder what awaited them in the human nest. When the relief fleet arrived at Earth, they found nothing. No human ships were in orbit. No signs of life were visible across the planet's surface. It was as if humanity had abandoned Earth. The relief fleet circled the planet for days, searching every rock and shadow, finding nothing but silence. Then the flagship's sensors detected something, an energy signature buried deep within the planet, a weapon of some kind. But what? For so long, humans had shown only peaceful energy use. Could they have developed a planet killer in just a few months? Fear made the coalition cautious. They unleashed a barrage of probes, seeking answers, seeking weakness, but all the probes found was silence. Finally, the flagship emerged from the atmosphere, sending a triumphant message back to the coalition. Earth is empty. The humans are gone, or they never existed at all. The coalition celebrated, poring over the discovery. The propaganda machine kicked into overdrive, painting humanity as a hoax, maybe an alien ruse to distract the galaxy. But deep in the bowels of the Earth, a lone figure watched the relief fleet depart. He smiled, knowing the trap was sprung. His people had waited centuries for a chance like this. As the coalition fleet traveled deeper into the solar system, strange things began to happen. At first it was small things, sensor readings that made no sense, ambiguous energy signatures that seemed to flicker in and out of existence, minor attacks on supply ships, which they blamed on desperate scavengers. But then the attacks intensified. One moment the coalition ships were boldly sailing through the asteroid belt, the next they were trapped in a maelstrom of rock and ice. Every asteroid seemed to explode with explosive force, every comet slamming into their shields. Then the dreadnoughts started exploding. At first it was only one or two ships, then entire squadrons were ripped apart. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, and all the while the human fleet remained hidden, striking only when the coalition came close. Then they tried to regroup. They retreated to the safety of Mars, gathering their surviving forces. There, they discovered the full extent of their folly. The Valles Marinaris was filled with a dense, impenetrable field. No ship could pass through it. No weapon could break it. They were trapped, and all around them the asteroids kept coming, tearing apart their fleets, slicing through their defenses, shattering their weapons. The coalition forces were being wiped out, and still they couldn't find the humans. Where was the enemy? Where was the fleet that haunted their nightmares? On Earth, Eva Bell received the report and smiled grimly. The trap was working perfectly. Now it was time for the main event. The coalition forces were too proud to retreat. They had declared war on the Sol system and they would fight to the end. So they launched a final desperate attack. Through the asteroid field, into the unknown, they plunged into the heart of the trap. They knew this might be their last stand. Deep in the system, a powerful engine hummed to life. A massive ship unfolded out of the darkness, revealing itself for the first time. The warship Colossus, the centerpiece of the human fleet, a masterpiece of technology, art, and engineering, a legend come to life. At the head of the bridge, Admiral Alaric watched the coalition fleet plunge into his trap. He knew this moment had been centuries in the making. This was humanity's chance to reclaim the stars. He ordered all weapons to fire. An intense beam of light erupted from the Colossus, followed by another and another, until the entire fleet was engulfed. The coalition ships screamed as their armor buckled and exploded. Not one ship survived. As the explosions echoed through the darkness, Admiral Alaric turned to his communications officer. "Contact Earth Command," he said, his voice echoing with emotion. "Tell them we have avenged the past. Tell them we are ready for the future." Aboard the Colossus, a new generation of heroes had risen. On Earth, a new era was dawning. After centuries of struggle, the humans were ready to take back the galaxy. They would rebuild their empire, stronger and wiser than before. The war was over. Humanity had won. From the ashes of the past, the humans would rise again, reclaiming their birthright among the stars. They would forge new alliances, explore new worlds, and bring hope to those who had lost it. It was a time for a new beginning, a time to build a better future. And as the humans looked up at the stars, they knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to defend their hard-won freedom, ready to carry on the legacy of their ancestors. For humanity had endured countless hardships, overcome impossible odds, and defied those who thought them finished. They had proven that no matter how dark things might seem, they would endure. They would adapt, they would overcome, for humanity was more than just a species. It was a force of nature. They saw themselves as heroes, conquerors who would be remembered for breaking humanity. When the Galaxy Council met, they bragged about their victories, about how Earth itself would soon kneel before them. But the Galaxy Council sat uneasily. Some remembered the words of the human delegate. Some remembered the long silence, and a few whispered what no one dared say aloud. What if humanity is waiting? On Earth, a single message echoed through the years. Do not provoke the bear. As children, they heard stories about the past, about the war with the machines and how humanity almost lost everything. So they understood the importance of patience. Even more, they knew they had to protect their future. In the shadows, Earth's preparations grew. Fleets were being built in secret shipyards. Weapons never before seen were being tested. Humanity did not announce its strength. It did not show its hand. It simply waited. And in that waiting, a storm began to gather. Silent, invisible, unstoppable. The coalition believed they were breaking humanity. But in truth, they were only feeding the fire. The spark of arrogance had been lit. Soon, the galaxy would learn how dangerous it was to underestimate the humans the Tyrant Empire struck first. Their warships appeared out of the folds of space, smashing into the mining colony on Luna. Before anyone could react, ground forces landed, blasting their way through the remaining defenses. Then they took the city, executing anyone who resisted. It was a show of force, a warning to the rest of the system. The humans had folded before the mighty tyrant. Maybe Earth would surrender now. Maybe the Sol system would join the Empire, becoming another trophy on their galactic mantle. But as Terran soldiers roamed the surface, taking what they wanted, the real victims of the attack watched from the shadows. Aboard hidden ships, a small fleet prepared for action. Aboard the warship Fury, Captain Eva Bell watched the planet through a viewscreen. Her face was grim. She had seen enough battles to know this was no victory. "All we have done is awaken the sleeping giant," she muttered. Back at headquarters, General Petrov watched the Tyrant fleet leave the solar system. He sighed. "Arrogant fools," he said, but there was a hint of admiration in his voice. "Now we can begin." By the time the coalition forces reached the outer systems, rumors of the human fleet had already spread throughout the galaxy. Many dismissed them as propaganda, but others were intrigued. If the humans had a fleet, where were they? Why hadn't they attacked yet? The most popular theory was that the human fleet was hiding near Earth, waiting for rescue, and the coalition decided to test that theory. A joint task force was assembled, a show of force from the strongest members of the coalition. 8 warships, each armed with a squadron of fighters, disappeared into the folds of space, leaving the galaxy to wonder what awaited them in the human nest. When the relief fleet arrived at Earth, they found nothing. No human ships were in orbit. No signs of life were visible across the planet's surface. It was as if humanity had abandoned Earth. The relief fleet circled the planet for days, searching every rock and shadow, finding nothing but silence. Then the flagship's sensors detected something, an energy signature buried deep within the planet, a weapon of some kind. But what? For so long, humans had shown only peaceful energy use. Could they have developed a planet killer in just a few months? Fear made the coalition cautious. They unleashed a barrage of probes, seeking answers, seeking weakness. But all the probes found was silence. Finally, the flagship emerged from the atmosphere, sending a triumphant message back to the coalition. Earth is empty. The humans are gone, or they never existed at all. The coalition celebrated, poring over the discovery. The propaganda machine kicked into overdrive, painting humanity as a hoax, maybe an alien ruse to distract the galaxy. But deep in the bowels of the Earth, a lone figure watched the relief fleet depart. He smiled, knowing the trap was sprung. His people had waited centuries for a chance like this. As the coalition fleet traveled deeper into the solar system, strange things began to happen. At first it was small things, sensor readings that made no sense, ambiguous energy signatures that seemed to flicker in and out of existence, minor attacks on supply ships, which they blamed on desperate scavengers. But then the attacks intensified. One moment the coalition ships were boldly sailing through the asteroid belt, the next they were trapped in a maelstrom of rock and ice. Every asteroid seemed to explode with explosive force, every comet slamming into their shields. Then the dreadnoughts started exploding. At first it was only 1 or 2 ships. Then entire squadrons were ripped apart. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. And all the while, the human fleet remained hidden, striking only when the coalition came close. Then they tried to regroup. They retreated to the safety of Mars, gathering their surviving forces. There, they discovered the full extent of their folly. The Valles Marineris was filled with a dense, impenetrable field. No ship could pass through it. No weapon could break it. They were trapped, and all around them the asteroids kept coming, tearing apart their fleets, slicing through their defenses, shattering their weapons. The coalition forces were being wiped out, and still they couldn't find the humans. Where was the enemy? Where was the fleet that haunted their nightmares? On Earth, Eva Bell received the report and smiled grimly. The trap was working perfectly. Now it was time for the main event. The coalition forces were too proud to retreat. They had declared war on the Sol system and they would fight to the end. So they launched a final desperate attack. Through the asteroid field, into the unknown, they plunged into the heart of the trap. They knew this might be their last stand. Deep in the system, a powerful engine hummed to life. A massive ship unfolded out of the darkness, revealing itself for the first time. The warship Colossus, the centerpiece of the human fleet, a masterpiece of technology, art, and engineering, a legend come to life. At the head of the bridge, Admiral Alaric watched the coalition fleet plunge into his trap. He knew this moment had been centuries in the making. This was humanity's chance to reclaim the stars. He ordered all weapons to fire. An intense beam of light erupted from the Colossus, followed by another and another, until the entire fleet was engulfed. The coalition ships screamed as their armor buckled and exploded. Not one ship survived. As the explosions echoed through the darkness, Admiral Alaric turned to his communications officer. "Contact Earth Command," he said, his voice echoing with emotion. "Tell them we have avenged the past. Tell them we are ready for the future." Aboard the Colossus, a new generation of heroes had risen. On Earth, a new era was dawning. After centuries of struggle, the humans were ready to take back the galaxy. They would rebuild their empire, stronger and wiser than before. The war was over. Humanity had won. From the ashes of the past, the humans would rise again, reclaiming their birthright among the stars. They would forge new alliances, explore new worlds, and bring hope to those who had lost it. It was a time for a new beginning, a time to build a better future. And as the humans looked up at the stars, they knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to defend their hard-won freedom, ready to carry on the legacy of their ancestors. For humanity had endured countless hardships, overcome impossible odds, and defied those who thought them finished. They had proven that no matter how dark things might seem, they would endure, they would adapt, they would overcome, for humanity was more than just a species. It was a force of nature. This story is brought to you by our supporters. If you want to help us make more content like this, join our membership program today. In the cold expanse of space, where galaxies twist and turn in an eternal dance, there existed a union of alien races known as the Coalition. Their strength lay not just in their combined power, but in their unity, their unwavering belief in their superiority over all other races. The Coalition prided itself on its mercy, offering subjugated races the choice between joining them or being wiped out. But none could deny the shadow of their might, the fear that forced planets to submit without a fight. Until one day, they encountered humanity. Humanity was different. They fought back, causing the Coalition to do something it had never done before: surrender. It wasn't a surrender born out of respect, but of necessity. The humans had proven themselves to be relentless, impossible to subdue. So the Coalition retreated, leaving Earth and its colonies in peace. Or so they thought. For the humans, the war was far from over. While the Coalition celebrated their tactical victory, believing themselves superior, the silence of humanity began to feel less like surrender and more like a trap. On the colony of Aridin, alien soldiers celebrated their victory in the streets, reveling in their conquest over the once mighty human race. These soldiers, hailing from various planets across the galaxy, made a mockery of the human prisoners, jeering at them and calling them broken and weak. But little did they know that within the depths of those human eyes burned the fire of defiance. For those humans had a secret weapon, one that the aliens knew nothing about. That night, as the alien troops slept, a strange signal passed through the sky. It was a human transmission, short and cold. They called the transmissions ghosts. They contained no emotions, no pleas for mercy, just facts. This one simply said, "Tonight, 0300 hours, Ghost 312, 26, 47, nothing more." The aliens dismissed it as gibberish, unable to comprehend its meaning. Yet they should have heeded its warning, for within hours, the alien barracks exploded in flames. The soldiers who had reveled in their supposed superiority just moments ago were now fleeing for their lives, caught in a deadly trap laid out by the humans. The next morning, the surviving aliens awoke to a nightmare. The human prisoners were gone, and in their place was a scene of devastation. Fires raged, corpses littered the ground, and the sky was filled with the debris of exploding ships. Panic surged through the ranks of the Coalition. How could the humans strike back so swiftly and decisively? It seemed almost impossible. Yet there they were. The so-called weaklings had turned the tables and dealt a devastating blow. As dawn broke over Eridan, the Council of the Coalition met in crisis. Representatives from each member planet gathered in a grand hall, their faces etched with worry and anger. The mood was tense, the silence heavy with accusations. Who had allowed this attack? Who had underestimated the humans? Questions flew like arrows, piercing the pride and unity that had been the Coalition's strength. But as the debate raged on, some voices cut through the chaos. More level-headed members argued that the Coalition should stop pushing further, that the humans, though beaten, were far from broken. They warned that the silence of the enemy was dangerous, that it hid a power the Coalition could not afford to ignore. Others shouted that the Council must not show weakness, that the humans were already beaten and any sign of retreat would only embolden the other races watching from afar. They argued that the Coalition, born of unity and strength, could not afford to back down. Now the vast majority fell silent, listening intently to these voices, torn between the need for caution and the desire for decisive action. But as the hours passed, tempers cooled and reason began to prevail. Slowly, the Council began to piece together the full scope of the disaster on Arcturus, the damage to their forces, the loss of life, the humiliation of defeat. As they grappled with these grim realities, the gravity of the situation became clear. They needed a plan, a strategy that would not only quell the immediate crisis, but also prevent future attacks. But as the representatives spoke, the air grew thick with tension. Each planet had its own agenda, its own interests to protect, and as they argued, the clock was ticking. The galaxy was moving, changing, and the Council, paralyzed by indecision, was failing to keep pace. Meanwhile, on Earth, the situation was very different. There was no panic, no division, only purpose. In the grand halls of government, vast shipyards worked without pause, turning out vessels bristling with weaponry. Entire planets were turned into forges, channeling every available resource into the war effort. Scientists toiled day and night, bending the rules of physics, creating new engines, new armor, new weapons that promised to change the tide of the war. At the heart of this maelstrom of activity was a spirit of unity, a determination to not just survive, but to triumph against all odds. Resources were pooled, technology shared, and every available hand was on deck. The atmosphere was charged with a quiet intensity, a focus that transcended individual agendas and rivalries. The human homeworld hummed with purpose as it prepared for the coming storm. The message had been sent, and they were ready to deliver on it, and still, the Council grew restless. Some demanded swift retaliation, eager to prove their strength. Others urged caution, fearing a repeat of the disastrous first contact. But the debate raged on, the galaxy in turmoil, and all the while, humanity remained silent, hidden from view, sharpening its blades in the darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. The Coalition, still blind in its arrogance, pushed deeper into human space, seizing more worlds, taking more prisoners. Yet the farther they went, the stranger the resistance became. Human colonies didn't fight like others. They used traps, ambushes, sabotage. A single human freighter would lure entire fleets into minefields. A few fighters would disappear into asteroid belts, striking only when least expected. Even when defeated, human soldiers left behind poisoned water, broken machines, collapsed tunnels. Nothing was surrendered whole. Every victory felt hollow, and every step forward cost more than expected. One commander of the Coalition wrote in his report, "It is like fighting shadows. We win every battle, but it feels as if we are losing the war." Still, the leaders ignored such words. They believed only in numbers, in fleets, in arrogance. They had not yet learned the truth. That silence is not weakness. Silence can be the sound of teeth sharpening in the dark. Then came the disappearances. Entire alien fleets, 30 or 40 ships strong, entered human space and were never seen again. No distress calls, no survivors, just silence. The Council grew alarmed. Was this the true extent of the human threat? Were they dealing with a foe they couldn't understand, let alone defeat? Fear began to grip the hearts of many. The unity that had been the Coalition's strength was starting to fray. Some planets began to withdraw, seeking safety in numbers, hoping to weather the coming storm from the safety of their own borders. But others refused to back down. They demanded retribution, a show of force that would crush the human rebellion once and for all. The stage was set for a final confrontation, a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Coalition, blinded by pride, pressed on, unaware of the trap that lay before them. The humans, patient and precise, waited in the shadows, ready to strike back. The question was, would the Coalition heed the warnings or would they walk straight into the abyss? Thank you for watching. This is our 200th episode. To celebrate, we're releasing 4 new pieces of merch: 4 guns from the Hive, Queen's Guard pistol, Slasher staff, the Hive Knight sword and the Hive Dragon's tooth axe. They're all limited edition, so get yours before they're gone. You can find them on our website or in the link in the description. Let's dissect this thing, it's got me all fired up. Let's begin with the title, I love it. Short, punchy, mysterious, it immediately grabs your attention. The title is basically a mini spoiler, hinting at an impending doom for the galaxy, which sets the stage for the story and gets us hooked. Next, the opening paragraph. It's world-building gold. We get a sense of intrigue right away with the Coalition trying to hide something. The fact that they want to hide it suggests it's bad news. The use of rumors and whispers creates a sense of suspense and builds anticipation for when the truth is finally revealed. The line about the council chambers growing tense adds dramatic weight. It was clearly a big deal. And then bam, the delegate drops a truth bomb. This is not surrender, this is preparation. This line is so powerful it completely shifts the story's direction. We go from wondering what the secret is to understanding the stakes. Humanity isn't broken or defeated. They're preparing for something big. The person speaking doesn't identify anyone who opposes them, but everyone understands they aren't dealing with. It's a great psychological moment. And the rest of the paragraph ties everything together, showing how this preparation manifests in different ways, in space, on Earth, and within people's hearts. So let's talk about that last line. A quiet fury burned brighter each day. It's such a strong image. Instead of writing humans were angry, they show us a simmering, controlled anger that's growing, waiting to be unleashed. By focusing on the senses, the author connects us emotionally, making us feel the intensity under the surface. Now, let's dive into the body of the story. I love this build-up. The galaxy thinks they have humanity on the ropes, ready to deal a final blow. The silence from Earth gives them a false sense of victory. But here's the twist. That silence was part of the plan all along. It's a clever tactic and unexpected. The galaxy's mistake is a major plot point and serves as the backbone of the story. They misread humanity's silence as weakness. But here's where things get interesting. The story doesn't dwell on the why of this decision. It just tells us what happens next. It's action-packed, which keeps us on the edge of our seats. We then see the galaxy's arrogance play out in full force. They underestimate humanity, gloating and joking about how easy this will be. They believe their past victories will make this one just as easy. And that's what makes it even more satisfying when their assumptions are proven wrong. Now let's get into this epic battle scene. My favorite thing about it is the element of surprise. Just when it seems like the alien fleet has the upper hand, bam, the humans unleash their ultimate weapon. It's a cool, tactical move. Launching from the dark side of a moon provides a stealth advantage, allowing the human ship to catch the enemy off guard. We get this incredible description of the ship itself, not just in terms of size and weaponry, but also in its appearance. The author uses vivid language to make this ship come alive. Lines like its armor was black, sharp and angular create a visual masterpiece. And then we have this line. Along its surface, lines of energy glowed like veins of fire. Brilliant, right? It's not just a ship, it's a symbol of power, vengeance, maybe even hope. The readers have been waiting for this moment, and the author delivers. The battle's intensity is palpable. The descriptions of the ships being destroyed, splitting in half, and their debris scattering is truly cinematic. You can almost hear the explosions and see the ships breaking apart. The contrast between the two fleets is striking. The alien ships are portrayed as weak, unable to withstand the human ship's power. It's a testament to humanity's preparation and a slap in the face to the galaxy's arrogance. The fact that the alien ships could even scratch the human ship's armor drives home the point that humanity was just ready. They were unstoppable. As the story comes to a close, we see the impact of this battle and the broader implications for the galaxy. The news of the vanished alien fleets and destroyed outposts sends shockwaves throughout the cosmos. The silent buildup is now met with thunderous action. The galaxy's false sense of security has been shattered. What follows is a wave of fear and uncertainty. The tables have turned. Now the galaxy faces the music, reckoning with the consequences of their actions. The once confident and arrogant aliens are now confronted with the true power of humanity. The final line, the galaxy would look back on those months of silence with horror. For that was the calm before the storm, ties everything together. It emphasizes the drastic shift in power that has occurred. Those seemingly quiet months were not a display of weakness, but a strategic move that caught the galaxy off guard. And here's a bonus. The story has a nice ring to it. The repetition of the word silence at the beginning of each paragraph creates a rhythmic effect that draws us in. It also reinforces the central theme of quiet strength. Humanity's silence was not broken by fear, but by a fierce determination to strike back. So here's what I think. This is a phenomenal piece of writing. It's got a killer title, strong characters, a fast pace, and vivid descriptions. The story's got everything. And you know what else it's got? Potential. This could easily be expanded into a full-fledged novel. There's enough material here to keep readers engaged for hours. If I were an editor, I'd snap this up in a heartbeat. Well done. The silence after the storm was heavier than any battle. The council chamber buzzed, not with life but with fear. Laughter died on the lips of the smug and the arrogant. Even the brash confidence of the young warriors had dimmed to whispers. The tales carried on winds of war, ships vanishing without a trace, fortresses falling in days, armies routed by unseen foes. All the boasts, all the predictions of easy victory rang hollow now. Every leader, every strategist who had scoffed at the warnings, who had planned the invasion now wished for the stars to swallow them whole. Do not provoke us, the humans had spoken once. Now the words echoed like a dirge throughout the chambers of power. It was a warning, a prophecy, a grim reminder of what was to come. But the proud races of the galaxy had never backed down from a challenge, and so the leaders of the coalition, drunk on their own importance, refused to heed the words that could have saved them. They rallied more fleets, hundreds of ships. It was the largest armada the galaxy had seen in centuries, a funeral pyre of warships meant to burn away the memory of the humans. They entered human space with banners of war raised high, with symphonies of conquest blaring from their speakers. They expected resistance, maybe a few human ships, a last stand against the inevitable. But instead, they found silence. No fire, no light, no whisper of life in the void. The humans were gone. Where they had gone or how they had vanished into the very fabric of space, no one knew. The coalition forces waited. They scanned, they probed, they prepared for battle. But the humans did not appear. And so the armadas moved deeper into human space, each step a triumph. The galaxy watched, shocked and confused. What was this strange game the humans were playing? Was this the defense of a dying race or part of some grander strategy? Day turned to night and still the humans were silent. Then the trap was sprung. Guided weapons blossomed across the coalition ranks. They came from everywhere and nowhere, ripping through ships and shattering defenses. The armadas had walked right into a tomb. Human warships burst from the darkness, a howling tempest of steel and fire. They were smaller than the colossal flagship, but still unlike anything seen before. The alien armadas had never encountered such speed, such ferocity. The first volley tore through the enemy lines, ripping apart the cohesion of the attack. As the flagship fell, the alien armadas panicked. Ships scattered, desperate to regroup, but it was too late. Each new moment brought new weapons, new tactics, new horrors. The galaxy had never witnessed such destruction. Human ships danced in the maelstrom, their weapons tearing through shields as if they did not exist. Alien commanders screamed for order. Some fought back, firing blindly into the darkness, hoping to hit an enemy. Others surrendered, raising their hands in token of peaceful submission. But there was no mercy in this war. Not today. Humanity's anger was a furnace that consumed all before it. With every passing hour, the situation grew worse for the invaders. Formations broke and reformed only to be torn apart again. Wings of ships vanished in white explosions of energy. And as the final sun dipped below the horizon, the once mighty armada became a twisted graveyard of wreckage. The largest fleet the galaxy had ever known, the funeral pyre of an empire, all drifted silently in the dark. The galaxy stared in disbelief. Silence is deafening when the stars themselves seem to hold their breath. And as the news spread, the silence widened. Worlds went dark as systems mourned the fallen. Each star that winked out was a testament to the humans' power, a chilling marker of what was to come. For the humans had not stopped. The galaxy watched, horrified, as humanity rose from silence. I've read through all the comments and chosen my favorite ones. Ready? Here we go. So, then the bombardment began. The night was torn apart by fire. Towers crumbled, fortresses exploded, fleets in orbit shattered in minutes. The streets filled with screams, but no one came to save them. In only 3 days, an empire that had lasted 10,000 years was gone, erased from the stars. And still, the humans advanced. Comment by Sharon. I have 2 questions. Why didn't they nuke each other from orbit much earlier? I'm thinking after the first 2 warnings at least. And why did it take so long to realize that there was a serious problem when the humans kept on coming and then refused to negotiate? Yeah, those are good questions. It's like everyone involved kept escalating things without considering the consequences. And even when they saw how powerful the humans were, they didn't back off. Like humanity was this unstoppable force that no one could stop. You know, even though the nukes were a big deal, it seemed like they weren't enough to make the others think twice. It was only when they started destroying entire planets that they realized how screwed they were. And let's get to the next one. The coalition collapsed, its leaders killed or fleeing into hiding. Whole civilizations that had joined the raids against Earth were forced to kneel. Some offered their fleets to humanity as tribute. Others abandoned their own worlds and fled into the dark edges of the galaxy. Yet, no matter how far they ran, they could not escape the shadow of what they had unleashed. For the first time, the galaxy saw what humanity truly was. They were not the fragile, reckless children of Earth. They were survivors of a death world shaped by fire, born from struggle, carrying in their blood the memory of endless wars. They were patient, they were relentless, and when provoked, they were merciless. At last the council called for a final meeting. In the chamber, trembling voices begged humanity to stop. They offered treaties, promises, anything to end the storm. And for the first time in months, a human delegate returned to the floor. Comment by Jorgensen. This is the point where I'd expect the hero to come back, maybe with a clever solution, or to declare victory and leave. That would fit well. Yeah, I mean, it's like at this point, the story has built up so much tension and the stakes are sky high. Everyone's gathered together and the fate of everything hangs in the balance. It's the perfect setup for a climax. You know, like, will humanity accept peace, or will they keep fighting? Will they show mercy, or will they crush their enemies? It's all here in this final scene. So yeah, I'd also be expecting some kind of resolution here. You know, like a major turning point in the story where everything changes. And let's move on to the next comment. He stood in silence for a long moment, his eyes scanning the chamber just as he had done before. The same delegates who had once mocked him now sat frozen, unable to breathe under his gaze. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm, steady, and heavy with the weight of victory. We warned you, he said. We told you what would happen if you provoked us. You laughed, you mocked us, and now you see the truth. We are not weak, we are not fragile. We are human, and humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. No one answered. No one dared. The delegate turned and walked away, leaving behind silence deeper than space itself. Comment by Toby 927. Can we get a moment of silence for these 2 species that died before learning the hard way that humans do not forget or forgive? Yeah, me too. It's sad that it took so much destruction and death for the galaxy to learn this lesson. You know, like if they had just listened to the humans in the beginning. Maybe they could have avoided all this mess. But no, they had to keep pushing and provoking until they got burned. It's like a classic bully story, you know, Like the bully only stops when you stand up to them and show them that you're not afraid. But man, sometimes that tough lesson has to be learned the hard way. And let's go to the next comment. The council knew the galaxy would never be the same. Empires that had once stood for ages had been shattered in weeks. Species that had called themselves mighty were broken, and all because they ignored a simple warning. From that day on, no one dared provoke humanity again. Children grew up with stories of the reckoning. Stories told in whispers about the humans who came from a small blue world and brought empires to their knees. Entire generations would remember the lesson written in fire across the stars. The price had been paid. And in the shadows of space, humanity returned to its silence. Not out of weakness, but out of strength. The galaxy finally understood what that silence meant. It meant humanity was watching, it meant humanity was waiting, and if ever provoked again, the stars themselves would burn for it. Comment by Alicia. Maybe this is a bit simplistic, but I honestly hope they can stay at peace now. The whole galaxy might be in ruins, but I hope that they can learn from their mistakes and try to do better. Yeah, I mean, it's like after all that death and destruction, you really hope that people can learn from it. You know, like find a way to live better and do more than just destroy everything. It's a lot of pressure. You know, like all that death and suffering should lead to something positive, right? It's like a hope for redemption and a better future. And now for the last comment. Comment by Shartimus Prime. I love it. That was beautiful. Thank you, it means a lot coming from you, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. If you liked this story, please consider supporting me by subscribing and sharing it with your friends. Every little bit helps me grow and produce more content for you guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.